Welcome. I'm Dr. Paul Dyer. Welcome to another conversation with me. Bridges Life presents Dr. Paul Talks. Hey, I have some comments and questions and thoughts that has been asked of me recently, so I figure I'd just share them with you. The question was, how do you intake a vision without emotional state? So here's it is. I think someone was trying to ask you, how do I look at something without emotions? You really can't do that. You really can't look at something without an emotional state. But what we can understand is where our emotional state comes from. I'm a science guy. I love science. I love physics. I love talking about wave particle forms. I love talking about the double slit experiment. I love talking about how protons and electrons, how they activate. I love how they talk about, the fractal world and plasma and how it comes through the universe. I love talking about the different molecules and structures. And the reason why I love doing that and studying it for fun and pleasure, and because that type of studying for me, it doesn't always answer the question, but it helps open up to more of a field of understanding, right? So when I look at things as far as something emotional, right, there are other things that are the problematic and possibilities. There are things that are problematic, and then there's things that are possibilities. And they can interact, and they can be a catalyst. They can be what you call create a structure, and they can create an atomic structure. An atomic structure on a molecular field has always been interacting with each other, even on a separate field, right? So it doesn't always have to be in one type of cage system. So you have to understand that there's things that are always acting into one type of atmosphere that's happening in another type of field. And yes, they have what you call a combined energy force. That's why when we get into wave vibrations and understanding, this is all part of that emotional state. But before we get into the science part, and that's why I say I look at things through a vision of science. Don't look to always just explain something, but look to understand something. If you look to understand it, explanations will come. But if you look into the how, that's a whole different atmosphere of how you're looking at things. Things are, sometimes we often try to see results. What's the result? How do we get the result? How do we get the result? I think this is why so many cities to this day, or so many communities to this day, are still struggling with the same things they struggled with for the last 60 years. How do we get the crime rate down? How do we get homelessness? How do we get economic development? How do we get certain people out of economic depression? How do we get black people to learn how to look into their mental health, physical health, spiritual health, and they're still struggling with they against me, those people against me, we are against ourselves, we're fighting ourselves, black on crime. It's all these different things, and yet we have not looked at through the science, the eyes of science, the vision. I call it science vision. The reason why I say it's science vision, because there are what you call there are factors, there are exponents, there are factors, right? And then there's, hold on for a second.
Recording stopped.
That's the process. Come on. With that, the process of happening, we understand that it can be what you call